Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf where we talk about books. As promised, I'm going to be sharing with you today the books in my allotment for SFINCS. I am a judge on Team BookTube and I have 10 novellas in my allotment for this championship. Now, before we dive into the books that I have on my list, I want to talk a little bit about what this competition is and share some details with you. Let's dive in. The SFINCS is the Speculative Fiction Indie Novella Championship. This is a yearly competition and it's first running to honor and celebrate the talent and creativity present in the indie community. They are a sister competition to both SPIFBO and SPSFC and highlight greatness in the novella format in all areas of speculative fiction, including fantasy, science fiction, horror, and so on. In total, there are 5 separate judging teams, including Jam Reads, Behind the Musings, Before We Go Blog, FanFi Addict, and Team BookTube, which is the team I am a part of. If you're interested in learning more about the competition or to see the novellas that are entered in this round, by all means check out the link in the description. The website is fantastic and will outline all of the novellas that are there in this judging. You can also see which novellas have been allotted to the teams as well as any reviews that are available so far. So Team BookTube has quite the allotment, and for myself, I have 10 novellas on my list to read. Let's talk about which ones I'm going to be reading and which ones I've already read. So far, I've read and reviewed 2 novellas that are in my allotment. The first one I read was Shattered Magic by Emily Huffman. The story here follows a young mage named Rocco who is taking part in a tournament, being pit against other mages in a duel to determine who gains admission to the academy. Rocco has his life figured out. He knows he's going to go to the academy and his future is set in his mind. But a mysterious stranger shows up with an offer from the god of magic. Rocco has his life figured out and he knows how he wants to live his life and how far he wants to take his magic with everything he can learn at the academy, and thus declines the offer. But the god of magic can't be ignored and Rocco learns the consequences of denying such an offer. Shattered Magic begins strong and thrusts readers into the odds pit against Rocco. Throughout the duels and learning about Rocco's life, I was invested early on in his circumstances, and I even found myself cheering on. This novella has plenty of magic, battles, and internal struggles to make this a captivating read as well. However, I found the investment that I initially had dwindled the more I read. While this does have both plot and character-driven storytelling, the further I read, the more plot-driven it became. As a result, the characters' motivations began to feel rushed and less impactful, making it hard to keep that initial investment. That being said, I thoroughly enjoyed the world building, the magic, the lore, and the implications they had within the story. The action scenes, along with the stakes, were gripping, and the plot was thoughtfully done. It was very evident that this author had a clear image of the story she wanted to tell. Overall, this was an entertaining read and sets up for a larger story. Next is Manticore Park by Quenby Olson. I am really hoping I am pronouncing that correctly. This novella follows Mrs. Rachel McGinley as she is a housemaid and her previous employment has come to an end. In seeking new employment, she comes across the Llewellyn Park where she is hired and she travels out to take the position. Mrs. McGinley has taken great care in protecting her heart and keeping to herself. However, on first sight of Mr. Reese, those walls begin to crumble. As Mr. Reese also works at Llewellyn Park, Mrs. McGinley will be seeing him more often, and keeping a lock and key around that heart may become more difficult than she thinks. This is an eloquent tale of a woman's venture into a new life and the vulnerabilities that it brings. The story itself is really sweet and it covers some deeper themes with grace, including vulnerability, the power of kindness, and confronting the past past to find a future. To me, the heart of this story, as Mrs. McKinley navigates her personal struggles, was thoughtfully done. As for the side cast, while there are few of them, they are endearing and they are used in such a beautiful way for pivotal moments throughout the story. In addition, the eloquent prose with the setting and the story often reminded me of classics I've read with a little sprinkling of fantasy in there. Now, while the romance wasn't to my taste, Manticore Park remains an endearing tale with possibility for continuation. The author showed great skill as well with the character work and storytelling, and it leaves me curious to try her other works as well. Next, the one I'm currently about halfway through is Servant of a Pale Sword by Tim Akers. I'm going to go ahead and read the description for this because I'm only halfway through, but so far it's quite piqued my interest. A lone pilgrim travels to the Temple of Absolution to free himself from a great sin. But when the priests of the temple cut too deep, Lohit Mast is left with no memory of who he is or what burden he sought to escape. Among his things is a strange and powerful sword, the blade forged from Madara, the very bones of the world. Is he a thief, an assassin, the hero of some great campaign? Or is he something far more dangerous? So far, this has been really intriguing. The setting and how the story is unfolding has really caught my attention, so I'm looking forward to continuing with this one. I'll also be reading Your Blood and Bones by J. Patricia Anderson. This is another one that I'm looking forward to, so let's go ahead and dive into the description. Kill the monsters when they're found, no matter who they used to be. The girl with secret feathers in her skin and strange bones jutting out beneath her clothes is resigned to her fate. Her deformity marks her as a monster, and the stories say monsters must die. When her family finds out and turns on her, a village boy saves her and leads her on a frantic escape. The girl believes her death has merely been delayed until he mentions a cure. With the world against them and the monstrous change progressing, they must cross water, forest, and field to chase the rumor that fuels their desperate hope. But is hope enough to keep them going? With this one being a fantasy and horror blend, I'm really curious to see how this will turn out. I'll also be reading Ruins of Smoke by João F. Silva, which is a prequel novella to Seeds of War, which is book 1 in the Smokesmith series. Let's go ahead and look at the description. The Eusharian Empire rules the known world with an iron fist. Imperials protect their world from the tainted hand of the deceiver, but he is back with an avatar capable of breaking the empire and grounding humanity into ash. Jeha is a sentinel of the empire willing to fight and die for kinship and duty. Agor is an imperial general disgruntled by the darkness he sees seeping into everything he loves. He makes his move. Matala is a young smokesmith who sees his courage tested as Ushar burns. Alakamar is the world's most powerful man, but even strong blood ties can hold him down and tear him apart. As the deceiver threatens the Eusharian Empire's heart, fiends walk the streets of the capital. Men and monsters clash in a battle fit for gods, and the smoke follows them. Having read Seeds of War previously and enjoying it, I'm looking forward to getting back into the author's writing and learning more about the lore, the magic, and the world in this series. Next, I'll be reading Caduceus by Alex Robbins. I hope I am pronouncing the title of that correctly. This is a prequel novella to the Ruined Gods series. I mean, just from the cover alone, this is going to have some Greek mythology in it, I assume, but let's go ahead and look at the description. Some lies cut deeper than any sword. War has come to the fragile city-state of Karnas. A self-proclaimed king of the south sows destruction among its outlying villages, cutting a bloody swathe towards the capital. As smoke from the burning wheat fields blackens the sky, Karnos beseeches its northern allies for aid. Offhand, this one seems like it's going to have quite a bit of action. I'll also be reading The Chase Begins by Amy Donnellan, which is the first issue in Catastrophe Incoming. The description of this one sounds really interesting along with the cover. I'm really curious to see how this one turns out, but let's go ahead and check that description. The theocracy of Isram is losing a war against dragons. While the bishops scramble for a solution, the holy city of Kekum faces a more immediate circumstance. romance. The murderous mage Nightingale has escaped prison, and only one person can stop her. So this looks like it's going to have dragons, dragon magic potentially. I'm curious to see how this one will turn out. Moving right along, I'll also be reading Nairai, Traveler of the Circle by Noor Al-Shanti. Now this one looks like it's going to have the quest trope in it, so let's go ahead and see what the story is. When her grandmother is kidnapped from their small farming village, Nairai sets out to find her and bring her back home. In a town on the edge of the Kingdom of Jade, she stumbles upon a small orphanage and uncovers a dark secret that brings back memories of the giant war she escaped as a child and propels her into an impossible quest, a quest that pits her against the terrifying sorcerers of the High Kingdoms. Join Nairai on an adventure that takes her from the highest peaks of the High Kingdoms to the darkest secrets below the ground. I'm curious to read this one because it sounds like it's going to have quite the stakes, some emotional moments, and the world building piques my interest. I'll also be reading Traders Unseen by Dave Dobson, which is an Inquisitors Guild prequel novella. Provisional Inspector Amara Denault is working on a case with her mentor investigating some stolen money. Everything seems straightforward, but then she is accused of a crime she would never commit. On the run from both her enemies and her friends, and not sure which is which, Amra must solve the mystery of her betrayal and uncover the plot that led to her misfortune. That plot, still in motion, is deep and deadly. It would give the city she loves over to the relentless murderers bent on power. Amra faces criminals, corruption, magic, villainous nobles, and a rot within the guild she serves. She must overcome them all to save Frosthelm and stay alive. Again, this one sounds interesting, high stakes, we have someone on the run. This should be an intriguing read. And finally, I'll be reading Audition by Rachel Newmere. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, this is actually a novella that's part of a larger collection from Beyond the Dreams We Know, as the novella itself, Audition, is a standalone within a larger world that the author has created. It is part of the competition, and it means I'm going in a little bit blind. The description for Beyond the Dreams We Know is available on Goodreads. However, it looks like it contains the descriptions for multiple of the short stories within the collection, so I'm not particularly sure which description matches Audition. So we'll go into this one a little bit blind, but I am looking forward to it and seeing how this novella works out and what the story is. And those are all the reads on my allotment for SFINCS as a part of Team BookTube. I'm looking forward to continuing. I love novellas. I feel like they're a great way to get introduced to an author, to a world, characters, you name it, and I feel like they just don't get enough love. So I'm excited to keep you guys updated on how the process goes, what's going on in the competition, what I'm reading, and all the good stuff. I'd love to know though, do you have a favorite novella, maybe a new one that you've picked up, or a long-time favorite? Leave your comments down below. I love hearing from you. And as always, thank you for watching and take care of yourselves.